Well, some of these tricks, okay, they involve large props. Some of them you can carry on, but a lot of them they're checked luggage. So you're telling me that I somehow escape miraculously, and so do all of the cases that I need for these 8 tricks?
Do you not have like dragon friends that could help out?
Well, if I did, they would not abandon me on the island. I would be leaving the island and returning back to my luxury cave in the valleys of Las Vegas. This is a scenario where I'm stranded on an island, yet somehow I have 8 of any tricks I could want. I've 8 of them that have miraculously arrived with me. Is that what we're talking about?
We shipped them over there for you. How about that?
Oh, you ship them?
Yeah, why not? Why
so
not?
Like you FedEx them to me?
Yes, there you go. Perfect.
Do you
Okay.
think the driver and I have one of those relationships that starts off frosty, but as the years go on, we sort of get to know each other and have like some sort of long growing mutual respect, and eventually his like wife will get sick or something, and I'll see it in his eyes, and I'll say to him, "Hey, are you okay, buddy?" And he'll be like, "No, I'm really not," and he'll spill his guts, and I'll do one of these 8 tricks, and he'll be like, "Hey, that's incredible. I mean, I'm sure my wife is dead now, but that really was a good sponge bunny rabbit routine."
Hello and welcome to another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Now, there are 2 ways you can actually be listening to this, which is confusing, because normally this is only a audio podcast, and we've only ever done one other video, and that was the Darren Brown double episode. So today means we have a very special guest. Now, he's not on the screen at the moment for you, but he is for me. And the first thing that I said to him is, I've really, really made an effort with my background compared to what you're about to see. It is so cool. And what's amazing is you're about to see things behind this person that you would have seen in videos and in shows, and everything that's surrounding him is so interesting. So we're really, really honoured to have him here. Now, you guys would have seen it from his videos. You know who it is anyway, because the name is on the title. So, of course, I'm going to stop babbling and introduce you all to Mr. Piff the Magic Dragon. Hello, Piff.
Hello. God, that was a lot of babbling.
That was a lot of babbling. I do apologise.
That was, yeah. Look, I come to this podcast and I don't know what other guests are like, but as soon as I got the email, I began building this background from scratch, made every single prop. I've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars into this background, and you sit there next to some lamp with the light on.
But you're surrounded by some incredible stuff. You've got the Pifftacular in the background there. You've obviously got the cannon as well.
One of them.
How many of them do you have?
We got a bunch. They don't last that long, the taculars. Because we tour a lot and they get smashed up on the road. But we've got a bunch of those. Behind me, behind me we've got this. It says the Piff the Magic Dragon Theatre. And we were in a small room in the Flamingo called the Piff the Magic Dragon Theatre. But a few years ago, we just got upgraded to the big main showroom. And so now we're in that. So we took that. We just took that as scrap. And this is one of the cannons that Piffles has been shot out of in the name of entertainment. And then about $10,000 of feather flowers.
So what we're going to do today is we're going to go to your desert island. So if you guys haven't heard the concept of the podcast before, the idea is that we're about to maroon Piff on his own magic island. When he's there, he's allowed to take 8 tricks, 1 book, and 1 non-magic item that he uses for magic. Particulars, how big it is, where it is, how many people are there, all that sort of good stuff. absolutely down to Piff. It's in his own imagination. These are basically the tricks that Piff could not live without. So with that being said, we're going to take a... Are we going to fly in the back of a dragon? Can we do that?
Now you're just riding my back, Jamie. That's what you're doing. Obviously, I prepared immensely for this, but on the way here, I was involved in a very nasty accident, and everything I ever had is now lost. And I had to rewrite my top 8 tricks from memory, if you can believe that. And unfortunately, ever since the accident, I've had real trouble with my memory. And so I've just jotted down the first 8 tricks I could think of.
Okay, well, however they come to you, it's all good with me.
Well, some of these tricks, okay, they involve large props. You know, some of them you can carry on, but a lot of them they're checked luggage. So you're telling me that I somehow escape miraculously, and so do all of the cases that I need for these 8 tricks.
Do you not have like dragon friends that could help out?
Well, if I did, they would not abandon me on the island. I would be leaving the island and returning back to my luxury cave in the valleys of Las Vegas. This is a scenario where I'm stranded on an island, yet somehow I have 8 of any tricks I could want. I've 8 of them that have miraculously arrived with me. Is that what we're talking about?
We shipped them over there for you. How about that?
Oh, you ship them?
Yeah, why not? Why
so
not?
you FedEx them to me?
Yes, there you go. Perfect.
Great. Is there any chance I could FedEx myself off of the island, please?
No, we don't do...
I'm just not very good at desert island living. You know what I mean? I'm much more of a sort of like convenient appliance living dragon. Like, my own fridge, Uber Eats, that sort of stuff. All right. Well, now it's starting to understand your hypothetical situation. I've been quarantined on my own Las Vegas island, which is floating on the abundance of water that exists in a desert. And the first thing I've done is ask for 8 of my favorite tricks to be immediately FedExed in.
Yep.
Okay. Do you think the driver and I have one of those relationships that starts off frosty, but as the years go on, we sort of get to know each other and have like some sort of long growing mutual respect, and eventually his like wife will get sick or something, and I'll see it in his eyes, and I'll say to him, "Hey, are you okay, buddy?" And he'll be like, "No, I'm really not," and he'll spill his guts, and I'll do one of these 8 tricks, and he'll be like, "Hey, that's incredible. I mean, I'm sure my wife is dead now, but that really was a good sponge bunny rabbit routine," which is actually one of my top 8 desert island tricks. So maybe we start there.
Okay, great. So let's go with your first item then. So it was. Is that what you're going with for your first trick?
Yeah, because it brings the most joy, and that's what Gary, my FedEx driver, needs right now. He needs a real bump.
What about sponge bunnies does it for you?
Before I saw the light and became a dragon, I was toiling in the mine of close-up magic, which is a dark, dark world, and only brings suffering and despair to those who choose that path. As we all know, we all know those close-up magicians. So I was doing close-up magic, and the thing that I always found the most difficult was approaching a group of people. And Faye Presto, who is a living legend, and was basically my mentor for close-up magic, she kind of taught me by example that if you can get them, if you can like hook them within the first couple of minutes, or in the first minute really, then maybe they'll tolerate you for the next 6 to 7 minutes, and maybe you can turn it into something more lucrative than that. So she had these sponge bunny rabbits by a guy called Eddie Ace, right? And Eddie Ace, he's a guy lives in where is it? It's like I think it's Pennsylvania, Munhall, Pennsylvania. And his slogan is, "You name it, I'll carve it." Anything you name, he makes out of sponge. Now, I've named many things, and he's refused to make them out of sponge. So I'm not sure how good his word is, but his sponge bunny rabbits are very good. So I had a set of these. I don't remember how. Faye told me about them, and I got a set of these. And and when I did, he sent me these other animals that he used to make. And I think one of them was like a elephant, and one of them was like a penguin, and something or other. So I, my sponge bunny routine used two adult bunnies, which makes them sound naughtier than they are, but they were just grown ups. Two of them, and five tiny baby bunnies, and a baby penguin. That was like what I used to carry around when I did close up magic. And at the end, when all of the, when you use the two bunny rabbits, um, when they get it on, and immediately reproduce lots of small bunny rabbits. The penguin was also amongst them, and I used to say, "Oh, look, it's a penguin. He's on work experience." Now, that doesn't work in America because they don't have work experience. So in America, he's an exchange student, which works just as well. So I would go up to these tables, and just as they're about to tell me to please leave them alone because they're having a nice, enjoyable dinner, I would say, "Oh, I'm sorry, you've just got a little," and I'd like brush my shoulder. "You just got a little, and you just got a little hair on your shoulder," and then I would like reach over and pull out the rabbit from their shoulder, and they'd all laugh. And I'd say, "Here's another word for bunny rabbit," as if because they laughed somehow they didn't understand the joke. So, and then I would say, "Here's for you as a gift," and I'd make him vanish, and then he'd appear in my pocket again. So I did like I had like three quick jokes and a couple of moments of magic, and I was just in on the tables, and I could at least do one routine before they asked the manager to evict me. I wasn't, I kind of split the room when I did close up magic, which is fine to do when you're a comedian, because even in a small gig, let's say there are 50 people in the room, if you get 25 people laughing, that's enough people to laugh. Whereas if you're doing a table and you got like five people on the table and two of them laugh, that's not good. That's not effective. The other three people just think you're a dick. So, I mean, like once I went up to a table and I said, this is before I was doing the bunny rabbits. I said, "Hi, I'm a magician. Do you want to see some close up magic?" And the guy said to me, "My wife has just asked me for a divorce. Do you really think I want to see some fucking magic?" And I said, "No, because I guess she just made half your house disappear." And then I got thrown out of the restaurant. Unbelievable. So, close up magic, I was like, for half of the group, I was hilarious. But for the other half, I was not really their cup of tea. So the sponge bunny rabbits helped me bridge that.
That's something that we've seen you progress as well, because you still use that. We've seen you use it on different various shows. Sometimes you've gone up to the host and you've got a hair, and then you've pulled it off. How did that translate to stage? Is it something that you like worked into other bigger shows?
I don't, because I did it so much. At one stage, it was like my A material, but I didn't want to publish because it was like I didn't want everyone else doing the same jokes. And rightly so, because then, I was doing some gig, and some close-up magician comes up to me and is like, and it was a guy who I was like thought would have not done this, who would have kind of like, anyway, he came up to me and he was like, "Oh, I love your bunny rabbit routine. When I do the penguin bit, it gets the biggest laugh." And I'm like, oh my God, can you just not tell me that you're ripping me off to my face? So, so I never published it. But the other thing I would say about close up magic is eventually I think I found another opening, which was I'd walk up to the table and say, hello, have you seen the magician? And they'd say no. And I'd be like, I'm here. Ta-da. And that's how it's just such a hard job to interrupt people for a living. You're literally saying to them, hey, the venue doesn't trust you to have a good time by yourself. So they sent me to help. And but I really like, they talk about 10,000 hours. And that's how much you need to get good at something. The good thing about doing close up magic is you do like, if you think about them as mini shows, a table is a show. So you do like 8, 10, 15 shows a night, and you can do that 4 or 5 nights a week. You can get your 10,000 hours in that way. And that's what I did for many years. I did hundreds and hundreds of close up mini shows a year. And that sort of like honed my performing like persona and my ability to interact with people, because because in close up magic people just talk to you. When you're on stage, they don't, it's like that's considered heckling, and that's never going to go well. But when you're doing close up magic, people want to join in.
Were you honing your like stand up persona at
Looking
at the same
back,
time?
looking back, I was at the time I didn't realize. I still do the odd close up magic gig, believe it or not, because there are some companies with more money than sense, and they'll have like some I don't know, some like event, some mix and mingling event, whatever it is, and they'll ask me to come and perform, and I'm like, I don't really. There are, there's like maybe 100 people. There's nowhere good to perform. I don't want to do this. It's just gonna bomb. So instead, I'll come and do walk around magic, and everyone will love it much more. And because now I'm a dragon, if I walk into a room, people are like, what the f- going on here? So now I don't have to like go up to people and say, oh, there's a hair on your shoulder. People come up to me and they say, what are you doing? And I'm like, nothing. And they're like, no, why are you here? And I'm like, it's not for you. And they're like, no, seriously, what's going on? And I'm like, oh my God. And then I can go into like magic. But they're basically like begging me to perform. Whereas before it was the opposite, like I was like begging a table for their attention. So now like being a dragon has changed all that. And I quite like doing close up magic now. I have quite a lot of fun doing it. But then I don't have to do it 5 nights a week, every week. But when I went from close up magic to stand up, it was a bit rough at the beginning because I was just like doing it as myself and I hadn't really found the angle. But the first day, um, I did magic in a dragon outfit. Literally the first show, I went, oh, this is it. This is because I had all the material, not all of the material, but I had some material, and I had the stage time, and everything just clicked. So from then, it was not easy, but it was natural. Whereas before that, it was a struggle.
From me, just a personal question, just for one thing that I've always wanted to ask you. Where did the development of Piff the Magic Dragon come from? Because it seems like
I was just about to tell you in that previous story. And you know what I thought? I thought, no, there is somebody at home dying to hear my other 7 routines. So how about we save it? We do another routine and then I'll get into that. How about that?
Okay, I'm down for that. So that takes us to your second trick. So after Sponge Bunnies, what did you put in your second spot?
Well, I'll tell you a trick that isn't in it. That this is not it. Uh, do you know, is it called Flash Stab by Bob Swallowing? It's got a small knife, like a sword, a small sword, about like 8 inches high. and you get a card chosen, and you wrap the deck in flash paper and flash string, and then you stab them on the end of the sword, and then they all burst into flames, leaving one card on the end of a sword. So that and Sponge Bunny Rabbits used to be that used to be my breadwinner. If I was going out and doing 10 minutes anywhere, on stage, and I did Sponge Bunny Rabbits to 20,000 people, and I'm always a little bit cynical when I hear like, oh, Cardini played Radio City Music Hall, because I'm like, he might have played it. That doesn't mean he went well. Because I've played Radio City Music Hall, and I've sat in the back of Radio City Music Hall watching other acts, sound check. And I remember watching Coldplay sound check from the very back row, and I was just like, is that Chris Martin over there? Is that tiny person Chris Martin? Now imagine if I'd have been like, is that Cardini over there? Is that tiny person? Oh, what's that? Oh, it's a billiard ball. Oh, wow. Look at it changing color. Look at it appearing and vanishing. Oh, wow. Now he's got some cigarettes. I just refuse to believe that before the Jumbotron days, Cardini was crushing in Radio City Music Hall. So I have done Sponge Bunny Rabbits to 20,000 people, but I don't think that they were that impressed. So at some point, I'm doing these two tricks and they're fine. And I kind of really felt like I didn't have any other ideas, because the flash tag one worked quite well, because I would say, I'm going to find your card like a dragon, and then I blow on the cards and suddenly they'd all burst into fire. So, it was a good dragon themed magic trick. But I did it for like a year, and I was like, oh, I'd like something stronger than this. And Colin Rose, he had this trick where like these balls would be thrown out of a box. Okay, these like different color balls. And I was like, well, what if instead of balls, then playing cards were being thrown out of a box? And what if I said that Mr. Piffles, my dog, was in that box, and what if the box was a Pifftacular instead of just a regular box? And what if he was trying to find a card? And I put it all together in about 3/4 of an hour, sitting in this bar. And I just sort of like, it suddenly all just lined up. And what it ended up being was somebody chooses a card and it ends up in a sealed can of dog food. And it's like the pedigree Trum dog food. So when you open it up, it looks like factory sealed. And then you go inside and you pull out the playing card. And then over the years, I added, I would do like a bill switch beforehand. And I would just demand people's wallet. So I would say, give me your wallet. And I wouldn't really advise doing this, because I found all sorts of things in people's wallets. I found drugs. I found lots of naked photos in wallets. And so anyway, I would find like a Starbucks gift card or something, or a Costco card. And I would take it. I would say, oh, this is mine. And then I would get some money and I'd get the money signed. And at the end of the trick, Piffles would fail to find the card. And he said, and I would say, oh, he says he's on a hunger strike. And we would open up the food, and in the food would be the playing card first. Then it would be the Costco card. Then it would be my middle finger, and I'd flip them off. And then finally, I'd bring out the money. And that routine, which is about 12 minutes long, it became like I could crush any gig with that routine. And when I got into stand-up, the reason I got into it was because I'd seen these these people like Amazing Jonathan, um, uh, who had like these incredible like 7 minute sets, 8 minute sets, 10 minute sets. And there was a show called Le Clique at the Edinburgh Fringe, and it was full of people like Captain Frodo, who like does an amazing contortion act with two tennis rackets. And these people who are like their whole lives with this 8 to 10 minute set, like they'd appear on like the Paul Daniels show, and I'd always wanted to have like an 8 to 10 minute set that I could just do anywhere and crush with. And before, when I was doing the flash stab trick and the sponge bunny rabbit trick, I was doing okay. But I did a gig with Max Somerset, and Max at the end of his act produced a live chicken from nowhere and just killed. The audience like lost it. And I up until then I designed my act to fit in a bag. And that's why I was doing like sponge bunny rabbits and flash stab, because they're packed small. And if, for example, I was trapped on a desert island with nothing but my carry-on luggage, then I'd still be able to perform. But fortunately for us all, that's not the case in this situation. So I thought, you know what? I'm just going to do whatever it takes to get the best reaction. So I started opening my the realms of possibilities to anything that I wanted to do. And I was in Edinburgh doing my first full-length Edinburgh show, and it was fine. I was doing like 30, 40 minutes, and it was fine. But I was like, this needs like it needs a gear change. I need to like, somehow find a way to like change the texture of the act. And the girl who was running the venue, she had a Chihuahua, and I put the Chihuahua into the show, and it did so well that the next day I went out and got a Chihuahua, and I didn't know what I was going to do with it for like 3 or 4 months. But I just had him in the show doing one joke for 3 or 4 months. And then I was just sitting there one afternoon, and I suddenly went, because I was like, how can I use this dog? And then seeing that Colin Rose thing, I was like, oh, the dog could be like throwing things out of my case. And then suddenly it all like came together. And I developed that routine over like 2 years. It sort of ended up becoming what it is, what it ended up, what it sort of like finished being. Because it's weird, like I can tell a routine is not finished, but I don't necessarily know how to finish it. And then I can get to that point where I go, oh yeah, this is pretty much done. And it stays in that shape for a long time. Maybe once in a while, I'll think of like one or two tweaks, but nothing really major. I'll kind of like figure it out. It's either finished or it's not finished. And I don't really know why it's just sort of like a gut feeling. But anyway, I got to the point where I was like, oh, this routine's basically there. And it became the routine that I did everywhere. And it was like the most reliable routine I did. And I still do it today. I just published a book. I published that routine in there. And I thought, oh, well, I'm going to stop doing it. But actually, I do it like, because people love it so much. And it's become one of those routines that I've never performed the full version on TV. So there are like a lot of like surprises, even if you know the routine. So it still like goes really well in the show. So that's sort of like, that's if I was forced to do magic on this desert island to nobody, then that's probably the routine I would go to first.
Yeah, well, we've seen it on several performances of yours, and it's such a well put together routine. My thing earlier on, you mentioned the comedy side with that routine.
Well, comedians have it easy. It's much easier being a comedian. Well, here's the reality. It's much easier being a good comedian than it is to be a good magician. But it's much harder being a bad comedian than it is to be a bad magician. Because when you're a bad magician, you can go out there with invisible deck and you're the best magician they've ever seen. Whereas if you're a bad comedian, you go out there and you just die, and it's horrible. You don't get people going, oh my God, the four of hearts was upside down on that deck. You're the best comedian I've ever seen, you know. But but once you get good at comedy, then you have all these premises to choose from, and you don't need anything for the premise. You know, if you want to do a joke uh, about you know, your journey to work that day, you don't need to go and buy a car. You know, you don't need to get a job. You're like, those things exist, and even if you don't have them, like you have everyone has the experience of them, so that you can just talk about them. But you know, if I come up with a new premise for a routine, so and maybe that, you know, can take us into the next trick if you want, Jamie.
Yeah,
Look
yeah,
at
yeah.
me segueing my way through this podcast.
Just such a pro. Yeah, no, please go for it. Yeah, yeah. So
The
number
next
three.
routine I came up with a premise first. Um, and the premise was, wouldn't it be funny if the dog ate somebody's ring? I borrowed a ring and the dog eats it. And so I came up with that premise. Now, unfortunately, I can't just go on stage and explain that to people. I have to have a way for the dog to eat the ring. And I spent about 3 years working on making the dog eat the ring. And eventually, Nick Einhorn came up with this. I had this thing where I was taking dog food and I was putting the dog food on the ring, apparently. And then the dog was eating all the food and my hand was empty. So therefore, the dog must have eaten the ring. And Nick Einhorn came up with this really great bit where I put the ring on a spoon and then I put the dog food on the ring. And as I did it, I stole the ring off and finger palmed it. And that was all Nick. And so I had this really great setup. But then I didn't have anywhere for the ring to go. So I still can't do this routine anywhere because all I have is like the dog eating the ring. And then one day I was like, oh, wait a minute. I could do the egg bag where, with piffles, where I show the bag empty and I put it underneath him and he puts an egg into the bag. And then I was like, and if I could find a way to have the ring be inside the egg, then I've got a routine. And until I had any of the methods for those, I still didn't have anything I'd go on and try. And the reason you have to go on and try it is because you might have the best idea in the world in theory, but if you go on stage, and this is where it's much easier with comedians, they can go on stage and they can try the seed of an idea. And if it strikes a chord with the audience will react. And you go, okay, there's something there. And then you can refine it. But as a magician, every time you go on stage, usually you're like, you know, if you're building something from scratch, you're at least, you know, 10, 20, 30 hours into it. You're probably hundreds, if not thousands of dollars into it. And you don't know if it's going to work or not. So you go on stage and it doesn't even resonate. You literally just throw that in the trash. So it's like saying to a comedian, all right, anytime you want to try a joke, it's $1,000. You got an idea for a joke? $1,000, buddy. Go up there. It's going to cost you $1,000 to try it. It's like, if you did that, I don't think there'd be as many funny comedians, you know? I think like we'd weed out a lot of people who didn't really want to do it that much. So I had this routine and it took like a lot of years to come together. And in the end, and you know, a lot of these ideas, they're only me like saying to other people, what do you think? They're not me having a brainwave and suddenly figuring it out. So anyway, in this routine, what happens is the dog eats the ring, and that looks great because of Nick Einhorn. And then I work with the other brothers, and because they hated the egg bag, they wanted it to be like, you know, those dog poop bags that you get on the roll of, you get a little roll of dog poop bags. So we use one of them, as an egg bag, which looked great. And then there was a trick by I can never pronounce his first name, Kanoya, Harbottle, and he had this thing with a whiskey glass where you use the uh, the the alcove of the bottom of the glass, a shots glass, and you use that to hide coins because the glass would reflect the light. And I think somebody who worked for me was like, well, what if you just like use mirror spray paint on that little, you know, uh, it's like a little, the opposite of a bump. So you can get like 4 coins in it. So we used mirror paint, and suddenly it reflected all of my hand, and it looks cool. Like you can stare at it, and it's just an empty hand holding a glass. It looks unbelievable, and we've got the ring in there. So when they crack the egg into the glass, then when I pour the glass into my hand, the ring is now under the egg, and they reach in and they take out they pop the yolk, and inside the yolk is their ring. So once we had that, it was like, oh, the game changer. And now the routine just crushed. But I mean, that's 3 years and a lot of money after the initial idea. So that was probably like the dog food trick. I got like a golden buzzer from Neil Patrick Harris on America's Got Talent from it. I worked all over the world with that trick. But when it comes to the routine that I'm most proud of, like in terms of all the beats and being original and the magic being strong and everything like that, it's probably the ring to egg routine, which has got to be the most mundane name I've ever come up with. But I'm not very good at names. Dog food, ring to egg, not very good at those names. But that's the one that I'm most pleased with. So that is number 3 on my desert island tricks.
Wow, what an amazing journey for one routine. It just goes to show the trust that you put in your team of people to come up with these different ideas and bring these routines together as well. It sounds like an amazing group of people that you're surrounding yourself with as well.
Well, that's what you do if you're not very bright. You just have to surround yourself with a lot of good thinkers. So what I'm good at, I'm like a magpie. When they have ideas, I'm like, oh, that's good. Yeah. Yeah. But because you're not allowed to steal in magic, then I have to pay them for the ideas. So I'm like a magpie with a hefty checkbook.
When I perform at gigs, I look at effects that tick these 3 boxes. Is it super strong and powerful? Yes. Will it last with your spectators for a lifetime? Absolutely. And does it leave them with a souvenir that perfectly captures the moment of magic? If that all sounds exactly what you're after, look no further than the liquid forks. These forks have been custom designed to be able to bend right in front of your spectators' eyes. It's so easy to perform, it's so visual, and trust me, they will honestly keep this impossible object because they've seen it morph in front of their eyes. It literally does the impossible. Not only that, Liquid Forks comes with 50 of these forks in each pack, and it comes with the full Liquid Forks routine taught by the world famous David Penn. Not only that, we have a subscription service. If you guys love these forks and you get through them at your gigs, we now offer a monthly subscription where you get sent a box through every single month at a 10% reduced fee. Like I said, you guys are going to be loving these. You're going to be performing them every chance you can. Trust me, the reactions are second to none. So guys, head over to alakazam.co.uk, pick up a set of liquid forks. You will not regret it. Easy to do. Leaves them with a killer souvenir. And to be honest with you, it's not cards, it's not coins, it's not mentalism. It's something beyond belief. Check it out now, guys, the liquid forks.
Well, that's a great choice. And it does bring us to your 4th trick. So what did you put in your 4th position?
I mean, these are just filler really from this point in. You know what I mean? I feel like we peaked because I just have this thing with podcasts. People listen to the first like 20, 30 minutes, and then very, very rarely people, get through the whole 3.5 hours. So I figure at this point, we might as well just dig in with any old. So let's take a break and let's talk about somebody else's routine. This is one of those tricks that I would love to do, and I do think about doing it still. And I just I've never got around to doing it because I'm not sure the original was ever published. And the other versions I've seen haven't been as direct as the original. So it's called the routine is Homing Card, but I think it's called Homing Card by Fred Capps. But there's a lot of tricks that are published under the name Homing Card. And I've never seen Fred Capps' routine published, as he did on, and what show did he do it on? I think he did it on the Ed Sullivan show? Ed Sullivan, not Solomon, Sullivan. And it might have been the show where he shared the lineup with the Beatles. So the Beatles' very first American television performance, Fred Capps was also on the show. And Fred Capps was like the headliner of the show. It was like, he was like the big guest and the Beatles were like there to make up the numbers.
No way.
And of course they stole the show. But the routine is, he says, I've got 5 cards and got 5 red cards. And here's what I love about the routine. He says, I've got 5 red cards, and this is what I think everyone misses. I've got 5 red cards, and the idea is to make them go from the left hand to the right hand. Okay, they're going to start over on this hand, in my left hand, which I know is my left hand because he does a joke about the way his thumb's pointing, and they're going to end up in the right hand. And as he's doing that, one of the cards changes into a black picture card. So you can see the difference. And he sort of pauses and he goes, oh, that's weird. And he's like, oh, I'm sorry. That must have just got into my pocket in the dressing room. Even though he's just shown 5 cards, he's like, oh, maybe I just mixed up the card or something. Even though he's showing 5 red cards. So he gets rid of the card. And he goes, anyway, I'm going to do a trick with 4 cards. It'll be just as good, except it won't have 5 cards. And the cards going from the left to the right. And the thing is that he's got this effect that he wants to do, which is the cards going from the left to the right. That's the effect he's doing. He's not doing the cards are going to change color one by one. And often when I see this performed, that people don't have a strong enough premise. They don't have that reason for having 5 red cards. So when they're changing, you go, oh, well, this is the real trick. But for Capps, it was always like, no, I'm just trying to do the trick where the red cards go from the left to the right. And he's just doing less and less cards, which gets less and less impressive. And he knows that, and it's breaking his heart. And then he gets to the final card and he just can't do anything. And he's ruined his chance in front of all this audience. His big break is over. So he's very upset. And I just think that's like, it's like it gives like some great stakes that it's really difficult in Magic to get good stakes where it's like, what's at risk here? And for Capps in that bit, like the thing that's at risk is his professional career. He's on TV, and he's going to look like a fucking idiot if he can't get these cards to go from the left to the right. And he can't because they just keep changing into the same black card, no matter how much he gets rid of it. So, one of my friends, he went to a famous clown school, which I'm gonna see if I can look up the name of, because I keep forgetting. Oh, Jacques Lecoq, that's right, Jacques Lecoq, famous. It might not be a clown school, it might be a mime school. Um, he went to this school and he was doing his act, and the teacher stopped him and said, "Can you do me a favor? Can you take apart and put together your table and tell me what you're doing? Because that will be far more interesting than whatever it is you're doing now." And, I think in magic, we get so swept up in the trick sometimes, like cups and balls. I have no idea what that's about. We're just putting balls under cups and then putting them in our pockets and then then they're back under the cups. And it's just like, what are we doing? Like, we have like magical, we have like, we're saying we have actual magic powers, and this is what we're doing with them, like making balls go under cups. So I love that trick. I love Fred caps, and I saw that, I was like, oh man, I'm so invested in this guy's life being ruined because he can't control the cards changing color. And like I said, I might do it. I might do it one day, but I've never found Fred's routine. The only other person I saw who did it really well was Guy Hollingworth. He does a routine, and maybe I'll learn that. Maybe that'll be mine. But I tried Guy's, and everything Guy does is so he makes it look so easy, and it's just a nightmare. I never managed to make it work. I reserve the right to have Fred Caps FedExed to the island to perform this routine.
Okay, we'll give him as a little luxury item, which I don't think we've given anyone a luxury item, so he's yours. Yeah, it's great, and I'm guessing that being that sort of comedic timing with that sort of routine is really what you'd have to work on as well.
I mean, work is like such a weird word to use about developing comedic timing, because unless you have that instinct, unless you kind of want it, unless you kind of want to be funny, then you're not going to put the work in. And I've just said work, so I guess I just ruined my own point. But it comes from like doing the show over and over again, thinking about the beats of the material, and taking it apart and analyzing why it works for other people and why it doesn't. So it's like, so if you just go, oh, I'm going to get comic timing, that's such a weird thing to do. It's like you have to get good at everything. And you get good at everything, and the comic timing will develop alongside it. But if you haven't got the right beats in the material, you can't develop comedy timing because you don't have the right beats there. So you have to have the structure, and then you have to understand what the comedic structure is. So it all sorts. The more you do it, the more it all comes together.
Great. Well, it's a great choice, and it does lead us into your fifth position. So what did you put in your fifth spot?
I'm going to do another Fred Caps one, but this is one that I've used multiple times in my show, the salt pour. So I saw Caps do it, and he does it great. Although a funny story I heard, which may or may not be true, Fred Caps used to have a business card with him buried up to his neck in salt. Because, when he's performing it, it just looks like there's mountains of salt because there's just so much. And he did a show, and afterwards the guy refused to pay him because where was the mountains of salt? There was just a little pool of salt on the floor, and this guy was expecting Fred Caps to be buried up to his neck in salt. So I was like, oh yeah, be careful what your promotional material promises. because if you don't deliver, you may not be getting paid that night. So, but I saw Fred Caps do it, and I saw a few other people do it, and that was a routine. I was like, oh yeah, I'm gonna do. And the framing I had was, we shot Piffles out of a cannon, and he died, and then we cremated him, and I did a salt pour with his ashes, and because the ashes are magical, then they just carried on pouring forever. And there's a company called Pagani, PEGANI.DK, and they had this amazing salt pour gimmick because I tried them all and I couldn't get any of them to work for me. They had this amazing gimmick that basically allows you to control the salt perfectly. And so I worked on that routine for a couple of years and found the gimmick, and I used to close my show with that routine, and it used to do really well. So that's an example of seeing, like, really just like taking another routine and finding a way to make it fit my act, which I don't do very often because I think it then puts me, and this is one of the reasons I've never done a homing card, it puts me in the same group as other magicians who do that trick. And so I don't want people to say, oh, I saw so-and-so do that trick if it's in my act. So I try not to do anything like that. But the salt pour is one of the ones I feel like, oh, we've changed it enough in order to stay in the act.
And does Mr. Piffles resurrect from the ashes?
Yeah, we sweep him up. We sweep him up into like a dustpan and brush, and then I pull him out of the dustpan. And he's in an angel costume.
Very, very interesting choice as well. It's not one that I would have expected you to have gone to. So that's really, really cool. But it does bring us to your sixth item. So we've had sponge bunnies so far. We've had ring to egg. We've had a salt pour. They're nice and diverse so far. So goodness knows where this is going to go.
A trick that got me into magic. How about that? One of the reasons I committed to being a magician full time. Look what I've got, Jamie. It's a coin purse, but it's brown. It's this, like, I don't even know how to describe it. It's my favorite designer coin purse, but it's brown. And you know where I found this? On the Alakazam store at Magic Live. I was like, oh my God, where did you get this coin purse? And they gave me one. And then I said, do you sell these? And they said, oh, we'll just give you one. And I said, no, I want 10. And they gave me 10 coin purses. And I now have all of my fancy coin tricks, look, in these purses. I mean, this is like the greatest magic product of all time, this coin purse. It's like the best design, and it's brown. So it's brown leather.
They are very nice.
And in this coin purse, I have one of a few sets of copper, silver, brass, which is my favorite coin trick, and was one of the first tricks that somebody ever performed for me. And I was like, oh my God, that trick is unbelievable. I want to learn that. And I got it for one of my birthdays. My parents got it for me. And since then I've collected like various versions of it over the years. But that's my favorite coin trick in the world, copper, silver, brass. And I always have a fantasy about performing coin magic, but I never do because I can never make it work for me. Especially this is a set made by Todd Lassen, who passed away. And so it's irreplaceable. And if you drop it, it's ruined. So, and I'm not very, I'm not that nimble with my fingers. So I'm a bit of a klutz. So I don't trust myself to not drop it.
So a second ago, you said you can't find a way for coins to work for you. Is that purely because of the Piff concept, that you can't find it to fit in?
Yeah, I can't really find a good premise. And it's like, I don't have to have that much of a premise in order for it to get in my act. Um, you know, it just needs to be a way in, like a hook, something to engage the audience and to kind of create some sort of tension. Um, and I just never get there with coin magic. One coin going from the left hand to the right hand. I don't, no, I don't know why we're doing that. And um, and you could apply that equally to like, well, why does like finding a hair on your shoulder, why does that resonate? Just something about them being cute bunny rabbits, and the routine being really surprising, and it ending with like a really funny reveal. Something about that engages people, and I think it's also the fact it's so stupid. It's just so dumb. It's like, this is what you're doing with your. Whereas like coin magic isn't dumb enough. It's not. It's not ridiculous enough. And therefore it just kind of like it hits that middle ground. I gave this coin purse a hat because I use this sock as a to like do a what do you call it when they change places? Transposition. Yeah. And it takes place in a hat. So I'm wondering whether if Pete's watching this, he might like to. I mean, imagine if all of the purses came with hats. Because it's good, because if the purse accidentally opens, then the coins just fall into the hat and you don't lose them. So it's like an added layer of protection.
A nice Piff hat. That would be kind of cool.
What? Why would it be a Piff hat?
Because then it would suit your style.
You don't think this suits my style? Wow, I thought we were getting somewhere, Jamie. I really did. I thought we were sort of, that thing where you bond over a shared trauma. I thought that's what this podcast has been. And then you come up with something like that? Wow. I'm really taken aback, honestly, and I'm going to have to reevaluate whether we move forward.
Good. So that brings us on to the tail end of your 8 tricks now. So we're on number
what are we down to?
7.
I've saved some good ones. I've got some good ones. Probably my favorite routine that I've come up with that I haven't published. So Ring to Egg is my favorite one that I've published. This is one that I haven't published. And there's a classic of magic, which is called Any Drink Called For. And you have like a kettle, tea kettle originally, and they name a drink and you pour it out of the kettle. Or you can use like a milk carton or whatever. Now, what we use for this is Mr. Piffles. And instead of a spout, well, he comes with his own spout, you know? You know what I mean? And so every night in Vegas, Mr. Piffles delivers one glass of whatever beverage the audience member asks for, and you see him piss it. It's one of those. I had this idea years ago, and I thought it was going to be like 5 drinks, and it was going to be this long routine, and I didn't get anywhere with it for 2 years. And one day I got desperate, and I said to Teller, you got to help me, because Penn and Teller have been these amazing mentors to me, throughout my life. Not throughout my life, ever since I was on that show. So the last 15 years. And Teller came up with this method for it. And we had it built, and it cost like 20 grand to build it. And it was just a real like roll of the dice, fingers crossed hope it's going to work. And we have a guy working for me called Gabriel, and he came up with the final tweak on the method. And it went into the show. And then we realized that we could show I don't want to give too much away, but we could make it look like the dog, the pee was actually coming out of his little doggy penis. And so so we did that, and it just brought the house down. And I was like, oh my God, we're doing any drink peed for. And we then, America's Got Talent asked me to do a guest spot. And they said, what tricks do you have? And I said, I've only got one that I want to do, and it's this one. Expecting them to say no. And anyway, long story short, we ended up doing the trick live on air on America's Got Talent. And it's probably my favorite TV spot I've ever done. And who'd have thought you could have a dog any drink called for at 8 p.m. on primetime TV. So that's my favorite one. Because everything about that is like, it's a funny premise. The method's really great. It's method's deceptive. It's like, it's hugely funny. The audience can like tell their friends about it the next day, and it's just instantly memorable. It's a great visual. So it's kind of like sums up everything I love in magic.
Yeah, it's also something that I can't imagine many people are going to be out there doing anytime soon.
No one can steal it.
What are the audience? I presume that the audience drink the drink. Are they reluctant to drink it?
Well, it's whatever drink they name. So there's a pull between the fact that they've just seen a dog it, and they're looking at it, and so like when we did it on America's Got Talent, I said to Howie Mandel beforehand, I said, look, I'm going to give you a drink, and it's safe. Just you have to drink it. Will you promise to drink it? And he said yes. So, and obviously I left out the fact that a dog would be putting it into a cup for him. But he named an Arnold Palmer, which is iced tea and still lemonade. And it's unmistakably, when you see it in a glass, it's unmistakably Arnold Palmer. So he's like, and it smells like Arnold Palmer. And he's like, oh my God, this is an Arnold Palmer. So there is, people want to taste it to make sure it is what it is, but also a dog it, so they're not that willing. So it's a nice, when we're talking about what's at stake, that's a good example of what's at stake.
So that brings us to your very final trick. Now, you haven't given any honourable mentions. So you can, if you want to give honourable mentions. If not, you can go straight into your number 8.
My favourite trick, and it's my favourite because it's been responsible for my biggest breaks, and I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be where I am today without this trick, I don't think. Because when you're a comedy magician, which is a terrible, terrible phrase, people think, oh, it's not going to be funny. He's not funny enough to be a comedian, and the magic's not good enough to be a magician. So he's the worst of both worlds. So I came up with this trick when I was like 19, maybe. I was at university. And I was stripping cards to make gimmick cards. And I learned to strip cards. And I had a dream one night. And I said, I wonder if I can use strip cards and regular cards and put these together. And I woke up and I was like, oh, I wonder whether that would work, this idea that I had. And I tried it and it did work. It worked. So the idea was a playing card, a signed playing card changes a piece at a time into another card. So I started doing it, and magicians freaked out over this trick. And it took me a while to get good at it, but I kept going. And when I was doing Piff, I was doing this trick to close the show, and they shot the first series of Penn and Teller Foolers in the UK, and they said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to do this trick because it's going to make them think. You know, it might not fool them, but it'll make them think. And I did the trick, and they went. Penn and Teller went bananas for it, and then that trick went viral. And then when I did America's Got Talent, long story short, but they just said, "Can you just do what you did on Penn and Teller, fool us on America's Got Talent?" So I did it again and again. It went viral again. Like the audience, like the judges freaked out about the trick. So and I closed my show every night with it still. So I put it out with Alakazam, and it was what got me known amongst magicians. So it's like the trick that's done the most for me in all of my tricks. You know, it's the one that's changed my career.
There are lots of versions of that plot which exist now, but I would still hold yours at the very top of all of them.
It was like the first time someone had done like a signed, you know, like actual sign card and given it away, you know, card changing. People always call it a torn and restored, which is weird because nothing's being torn and nothing's being restored. So it's a transformation. But yeah, it's been like super good to me, and I finished my book with 94 pages of photos explaining it step by step, which weirdly has been the biggest complaint of my book, has been that we ended it with 94 photos.
But talking of books, it leads us on to your one book. Now, it's been easy so far because you've had 8 tricks, but now you're only allowed one book.
Oh, this is easy.
This
is easy.
Okay, so what did you go for then?
It's Drawing Room Deceptions by Guy Hollingworth. The greatest magic book of all time. Everything about it, the writing, the illustrations, the execution, the order of the tricks, everything about it is flawless. When Guy does a card trick, I sort of, because he does this great thing where he like just sets up, you know, for some reason he gets like, he kind of like draws the audience in, and there's like a hook, and you're like, oh yeah, I give it, I want to see him succeed.
Yeah, it's one that we've had several times before, and no doubt we're going to have again because it seems to be one of those books that will just be for forever studied. I think.
Yeah,
it's just wonderful.
Yeah,
and it does bring us to your item. So, what did you put in your item?
Well, this is tricky because I have to choose between Jade, my onstage and offstage partner, and Mr. Piffles. But I have to say, sorry, honey, I love you very much, but the dog was there first, and therefore I will be FedExing Mr. Piffles to my desert island.
Is Mr. Piffles the same dog that you've always had as well?
I still have him. Yeah, he's almost 17 now. Yeah, he's almost 17, and he does the occasional show. But we actually cloned him. We got his DNA. We sampled his DNA and we cloned him, and we have another dog who is is genetically identical to Mr. Piffles, and is a year and a half old now, and has taken over from Mr. Piffles and does the show.
Did you train Mr. Piffles? Because he's so well behaved.
No, he's just like that, really. And we tried a few other dogs, but we couldn't get anyone to be like him. So it was just like, oh, let's just clone him. And so we did, and unbelievably, and this new dog, his name's Fortune, because he cost a fortune, and he's great. He's unbelievable. People don't know it's not Mr. Piffles.
Well, that was a really great list. Thank you so much for taking us through it and for giving us your reasonings behind it as well.
Well, thanks for having me on this podcast of yours. And I've just got one last thing to say, and that is that these coin purses in brown are available from Alakazam, and I suggest you stock up while you still can, because these will not stay around for very long.
There is one thing that we're at the end now, so we have to circle back to the reason for Piff the Magic Dragon.
Well, so what happened was, I've got a real resting bitch face. Okay, now that's not something I'm in control of. it's just on my face, and it's my default setting. So imagine, you do a wedding, you're getting married, and you book a magician, and this guy comes to the party. So I was doing these gigs. I had this guy come up to me. He said, "What is your problem? You're like the Eeyore of magic." And then he fired me because he was the groom. So I was getting let go at all these places, and my work was drying up. I had less and less places. And also I was doing these jokes, like I said earlier about your wife just made half your house disappear. I was finding my style, and it was not a close-up magic style. And I didn't know what to do. And around the same time, I went to a party, which was a fancy dress party, a costume party, and I didn't have anything to wear. So I said to my sister, "Do you have something I can wear?" She said, "Yeah, I've got a dragon outfit under my bed." And I went, "Okay." Didn't ask any more questions. Neither should you. And I went to the party as a dragon. And I arrived at the party, and no one else was in costume. It was just me. All these people were coming up to me, and they said, "What are you supposed to be?" And I'm like, "I'm a dragon." And they were like, "Well, why are you a dragon?" I was like, "Listen, dickhead, you're supposed to be in costume. So why are you coming up to me?" My friend, she came up to me. She said, "You could do this in your act. You could be Puff the Magic Dragon." And I said, "Wait, I could be Piff the Magic Dragon. You might have heard of my older brother, Steve." And I came up with that line straight away, and I was like, "That's really funny." And it took me another 4 months to try it. But as soon as I did it, I was like, this is what I need to do now. And I was doing a close-up gig where I was just bombing. And I said to the girl who was running, I said, "Look, I don't want to do this anymore." She said, "But look, I can't get somebody at this much short notice. Why don't you come and do it as the dragon?" And I was like, "Okay." So I did it, and it just killed. And all these people who, hated me were now begging me to do magic. And all these people who thought I was a dickhead, now as a dickhead in a dragon outfit, they thought it was hilarious. So it became this thing that just, I kind of, like I say, like going back to that thing of magpie, I realized that this was like gonna make me stand out, and that I had a lot of ideas around it, and I've always just kept on having more and more ideas around it. So I went for it and went all in. And for the first couple of years, people were like, "What the fuck are you doing? This is dumb." And I was like, "I've got a feeling this is going to be the biggest thing I do," and it's sort of proven to be that way. Don't listen to what the haters say, even if they're right. It's good to be a bit stubborn and a bit stupid in this business, because if you really understood the odds you're up against and the unlikelihood of success, then you would never try in the first place. So be a little dumb.
Well, with that being said, if people want to find out more about you and about your book and about any other projects and shows, where can they go to?
I'll just finish this. That reminds me of one last little story, which is so short. It's about 45 minutes. The first part is, so Billy McComb was a legend in our business. And I met him, went for dinner with him after the Magic Circle one night. And he was like giving me all this advice and wisdom, and we're getting on great. And then he said to me, "Oh, do you have a business card? Give me your card." And I said, "No, I don't have one." And he was furious. He was like, "Listen, in this industry, you've always got to be prepared, because you don't know when you're going to meet the person who's going to give you your break, blah, 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 blah." And I just felt like, if people don't remember me, if people can't like recall who I am after meeting me, if they need a business card to remember who I am, then I haven't made a good enough impression. So, and that's kind of dumb, that thought, because like they're not gonna remember your number. But I was like, it was like the beginning of the internet, and I was like, people can find me. So that's why with Piff, one of the reasons I like followed it through so confidently was because I was like, hey, if you've seen this, even the first 10 seconds, you're going to remember it and you're going to be able to Google it the next day or the next week or whatever, you know. And so if you want to find my book or my DVDs or where I'm performing next or any more information about me, Google it. And hopefully I'll be within the top 10 results.
Amazing. Thank you so much. So thank you once more for giving us your time and giving us your list.
Thanks, Jamie.
Don't forget, we do have Stranded with a Stranger as well. So if you want to send in your list, you can. Just send it to sales@alakazam.co.uk and we'll get that on one of our Monday editions. But for now, thank you all for listening. And we will see you again next week on another episode of Desert Island Tricks. Goodbye.
Hello guys, I'm here to talk to you about Alakazam Unlimited. This is the best streaming platform in the world, I'm telling you now. With Alakazam Unlimited, you get access to over 150 magic routines. This is video performances and explanations. We have card magic, coin magic, kids magic, rope magic, mentalism, stage, parlor, impromptu. We've got you covered. All of this for the low price of just £4.99 a month. And you can cancel at any time. Perfect if you've got commitment issues. Yes, I'm talking to you. Guys, you are going to absolutely love it. If you haven't joined the platform already, what the heck are you doing? Alakazam Unlimited is a streaming platform that you need to be a part of. Not only that, there is also exclusive content only available on the platform. Check it out now, alakazam.co.uk. Cheers.